It's so good to see everybody here today. We're excited for this training event, and really our focus today this discussion is going to be on strategies for success in National Marriage Week 2025. And our goal is really to give you the tools that you need to make the most out of National Marriage Week and to really use National Marriage Week as a tool to reach your communities and to reshape how your city sees marriage. And so today, we get to hear about 3 really unique events from this year's National Marriage Week and how to facilitate those events. And so we'll also be sending out a resource package in our follow-up email, and we'll be sending in that follow-up email all of the slide decks and any other resources that are mentioned today. And we'll also be including a list of all of the creative ideas that you guys, our CMI family, did this year. So be on the lookout for that. But before we begin today's training event, we always want to open with prayer. And today we have Bill Mckenna from Maryland Marriage Initiative, and he's going to be leading us in prayer. So Bill, whenever you are ready, sir.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. It's certainly a privilege and an honor to be able to greet all of you as we approach St. Patrick's Day. For all of you who think you're Irish, wish you were Irish or are Irish, top of the morning to you, a little bit early, but top of the morning. I have a special Irish prayer for all of you, for your families, for those that work with you. It goes like this. May God give you for every storm, a rainbow. For every tear, a smile. For every care, a promise, and a blessing in each trial. For every problem life sends, a faithful friend to share. For every sigh, a sweet song and an answer for each prayer. So may God grant all of you all the good things that can come from him. We are all his servants. You are his servants. We just pray that he will continue to bless each one of you with all the wisdom and all the knowledge that you can use to continue to build the successful and beautiful ministries that you all have.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Bill. That was beautiful.
Just hold up this.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, oh, I see it. Yes, that was so good. Thank you so much for that. Well, first on our agenda today, we have Dionna Sanchez. And Dionna, as you know, serves as Marriage Initiative's Director of Communications, and she's going to be sharing her thoughts on preparing for National Marriage Week 2025. So Dionna, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. I was thinking you guys probably are thinking we just finished up our events for National Marriage Week. Why do we have to start talking about next year so soon? And how does participating benefit us in our local work and objectives? Well, we're talking about it now because we want to see you guys succeed. And not succeed in the form of how the world sees success, but succeed from the standpoint of making an impact in your community. Having a successful event and a successful strategy from your CMI for your community, it takes time and intentionality for sure. So the relationships your team is developing with churches, national leaders, and other marriage leaders, it's crucial because it helps you elevate whatever it is that you decide you want to or can do. Your community wants to see you doing something. So in this regards, National Marriage Week is the perfect opportunity to showcase who you are, what you're about, and activate your heart for marriages in your city. In addition, as awareness of National Marriage Week grows over the years, your participation and activity is going to help raise the awareness that you exist. It's going to come back around and benefit you. And awareness is the first and sometimes the most critical component in helping your initiatives grow. If it's the National Day of Prayer, as a believer, why would we not pray? If it's National Marriage Week and we serve marriages, why would we not champion this to create stronger and healthier homes in our country? I want to just clarify. National Marriage Week is not about the Marriage Initiative team. It's about all of us. It's our national marriage leaders, our churches, and our pastors who talk to their couples week in and week out. It's researchers who study the trends and facts of marriage on our society. It's those who are championing change in their states, and it's the couple next door. It's your aunt and uncle, your grandparents who you adore and who left you a strong marriage legacy. And it's your child who just got engaged and who none of us ever want to see go through the pain of a divorce or a toxic marriage. That's what makes it so beautiful. It's all of us coming together, walking in unison, saying that a joyful and a healthy marriage matters for our children and our heritage. And more than that we have resources, classes, and information that can help you get there. So National Marriage Week is part of a greater worldwide movement. It did start in the UK in 1996 by Richard and Ria Kane. And now I believe over 20 countries participate. This is not just a ministry we inherited. It's a network of countries that talk to each other, listen to each other, and are learning from each other. It may go on behind the scenes, but it's going on. National Marriage Week gives us a moment in time that reminds us that we are a part of something greater, something not just national, but worldwide. It reminds us that we're all on mission together to serve the Lord and to serve marriages and families wherever we are. So I'd like to get down to some tangibles. First of all, we've added a page on our Marriage Initiative website about National Marriage Week. And that's going to be available for you as a great quick one-stop shop, so to speak, for you to grab short, high-level information to relay to people you talk to about National Marriage Week. There was a volume of information on the National Marriage Week website when we got it, but if you're able to visit it on occasion throughout the year, it can offer you some great messaging, tools, and resources. And just please know it's going to continue to be adjusted as we're still continuing to refine it to be stronger and better bit by bit. And if I could encourage you, I'd love for you to start getting to know the National Marriage Week message on a deeper level. And when I say message, I'm talking languaging. For example, on our media page, there are interviews that our spokesperson, Arlene Pelican, has done. And if you're able to listen to those, I think you can pull valuable nuggets from them. That's not just to hear what she said about a yearly theme, but to listen to what questions media had for her on marriage and where their interest lies on the subject. Also, our messaging on our website, socials, and newsletter is very intentional. National Marriage Week is messaging to a nation, Christians and non-Christians alike. Our heart and our values, they're going to remain the same, but there will be differences in how we speak to a nation, what we say and how we say it, what we don't say and how we navigate cultural triggers. This messaging can be a great asset to you and help you as people start to ask you questions as well. We've also created a new partner page with a little video that our National Marriage Week team created. It talks about our goals and vision, and it's a great place for you to gain deeper understanding of our objective to work arm in arm with others in marriage ministry. Not for them to serve us, but for us to truly collaborate together and help reach more couples. And you're welcome to use this however you see fit as well. We have a Marriage Week events section that is going to be pulled down soon in preparation for next year, but it's going to be a page where your event for National Marriage Week 2025 can be promoted on. And it's also going to be a great spot to see what else other people are doing and to gain ideas. This year, after the celebration week, which is what I personally call February 7th through the 14th, I discovered several additional events that we could have helped promote or put up on our website if it had only been communicated to us. So I just want to make sure to draw that to your attention for next year, as I don't want your event to be left out. And then just please continue to use that calendar, share it, and use it for your own marriage events so that it remains populated and is useful for those who land on the website. Please hear me when I say that it's not our intent to make you feel obligated to do something, but National Marriage Week is a natural fit for your objectives, and it's a great platform to integrate into what you're already doing. It gives your team another legitimate reason to reach out and make those connections. We want you to feel like you know what's going on and that you know how to get seen so that you have access to any information you may decide is helpful for you. We don't want you to feel like you're being asked to do extra things. We realize some of you are just getting off the ground and building your teams, but this movement on the subject of marriage can enhance and propel your efforts and work. I truly believe that we can make an impact within our country, but it's going to take all of us messaging in unity together. People hear so many different messages as it is. They need a chorus of voices, a steady beat of the drum, so to speak, saying the same thing about marriage and family that will counteract all the confusing and harmful ones they hear. My hope is that somehow you can see this isn't another thing that you have to do, but it's a movement that you get to help build and grow, knowing that you can make a difference in very real homes with very real legacies and generations coming out of those homes. We want to help you not miss opportunities, but take hold of them and leverage the occasion to connect and build on your efforts. We're also working hard on our end, already pivoting and beginning our work in process for 2025. The goal is that you'll leave today with some great takeaways and some vision that even throughout the year, if we nudge you to use our hashtag National Marriage Week or tag us or follow us, please know that it's just because we want to include you. We want you to feel like you know what's going on and that you know how to get seen during the buzz that will happen during National Marriage Week, and that you'll have access to any information you may need. We have a lot of dreams. There's a lot of development that's going to take shape over the years with this movement. We don't want you to get tired of hearing about it. But man, it's really a neat thing to be a neat thing and opportunity to be a part of. So please reach out to us anytime. Reach out to me if you have questions or suggestions. Your input makes us better, and I really would love talking with you. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Dionna, for sharing with us today. It's so good to hear from you. Well, up next, we get to hear from Naomi Brower. And Naomi is an extension professor for Utah State University who specializes in helping others to improve the quality of their lives by strengthening their relationships. And she earned her master's degree in family and human development from Utah State University, and she's a certified family life educator. She's been organizing and implementing the Utah Marriage Celebration since 2008. And Naomi couldn't be here live with us today, so she prepared a video presentation for us on virtual marriage events. And Naomi started in 2008 with the Utah Marriage Celebration being an in-person event, and then with COVID had to pivot to online, and she's had such great success that they have continued online. So I'm excited for you to get to hear from Naomi today.
Hi, I'm Naomi Brower, Extension Professor for Utah State University, and I'm going to be sharing with you some lessons that I've learned from organizing a large marriage strengthening event over the last 17 years. The event name we chose is the Marriage Celebration, and it's a date night of education and entertainment for anyone who wants to strengthen or prepare for a healthy relationship. And it's held on a Friday night in February, and when we were doing it in person, we did it at a local university that had a capacity of around 700 to 900 people. And I had a coworker who did a similar event at a local library that would hold around 300. And so at this event, we had several breakout sessions at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and then at 8 o'clock, we had a keynote presentation. The 4 to 6 o'clock were a pre-conference. And now that we're doing this in a virtual event, we still have about the same hours, but we just have live breakout sessions at 6 and 7 o'clock with a keynote at 8. And then we have pre-recorded sessions for anyone who'd like to have that additional content at the 4 to 5 o'clock hour or any other time that they would like to do it. So the presentation topics are generally selected from the topics that we get from therapists, as well as additional feedback that we get from participants that have come over the years. And pretty much we've come down to these main topics you see on the screen here on an every year basis. These are the top things that couples are saying they really want information and help with. And so what we try to do is we have a variation on these topics on a yearly basis, but we don't necessarily just talk about how to communicate. We might talk about the topic of how to communicate about certain something that year, or we might not talk specifically about one aspect of intimacy, but we will talk about different types of connection with intimacy or different variations on that same topic, if that makes sense. And the way that we chose speakers, as we were looking for individuals who had the expertise in their field and also were dynamic, which is really important, especially when you're doing online conferences. You want to have that dynamic capability to keep people's interest. And so we would generally pay them a small stipend for their time. When we first started out, it was about $50. Over time with inflation, it's closer to $100, maybe even a little bit more if you have the budget for that. And our keynote selection was very similar. We tried to find someone who was very engaging, someone that had a good educational message related to marriage, but sometimes people wanted to just have more of an an entertainment aspect as well. So we had people who were magicians and musicians. We've had comedians, as you can see here on our screen. We had someone who was kind of an impersonator and did a lot of fun things that way. Moving to an online venue, we're still trying to figure that out. This year we had a comedian and it did not go over super well because there's not a lot of audience feedback when you're online. So we live and learn, right? And for keynote speakers, we usually have had in the past around 2,000 to 3,000, maybe a little bit more of a budget. And with all of these speakers, you might think, well, gosh, that's not very much. But some of the best speakers that we have had have actually not requested to get paid at all. So it's not necessarily about how much money you pay someone. Sometimes it's more about the passion that they have for the nonprofit nature of the event and just wanting to give back to the community and especially to help people to strengthen their relationships. So let's talk about maximizing attendance. One of the biggest things you need to think about is the venue selection, because that's going to determine how many people you can have. As I mentioned, I had a capacity of around 700 to 800 people. The actual capacity of the room was about 900, but we found if you go too much over 800, people were very unhappy because they want to leave a space in between, or it just felt very cramped. So that's something to keep in mind. The reason we went for whatever the largest room is going to be your capacity, because that is where we did a keynote presentation. If you're not going to do a keynote, then you don't have to worry about that so much. And also, if you're planning on doing breakout sessions, you now need to figure out if you have enough rooms that you can break out that large group into several smaller groups to then equal that same large amount. So that's just something to keep in mind. Even if you're doing it online, you're still going to have a capacity. So we personally use the Zoom webinar, and so we have a little bit higher amount that we can have. And when you're thinking webinar, you need to also remember, or even Zoom meeting, you need to think about the number of connections rather than the number of seats. So we have, for example, we have a 1,000 seat capacity, so to speak, but that's 1,000 connections and not necessarily 1,000 people, if that makes sense. So if you chose to do a Zoom meeting, which you could do for free, you would probably have a capacity of around 300 for a keynote presentation, everybody all together. And then you could have breakout sessions with a couple of other individuals that might have accounts and do Zoom meetings as well. And so that would be how you might be able to break it out on an online kind of thing. As far as registration costs, when we were in person, it was obviously a lot more expensive because you're going to have venue costs. So generally, we would try and keep costs to $40 to $50 per couple. And that's not always easy to do. It depends on the venue costs. That was even with the discounts and everything else that we were able to get from the venues that we were using. We also opted not to do dinner because there was a much bigger expense. But if you've ever used venues, you know that sometimes they charge you $8 for a small piece of cake. And so even with the discounts, it can be pretty expensive and add up pretty quickly. So one of the things that's been a benefit of going online is that we don't have any of those venue costs. So we've been able to do tickets for closer to the $10 to $20 range. And notice I say range because I do encourage you to have an early bird registration. If you're doing it in person, that could be vital to be able to get the counts for refreshments and handouts and all that kind of stuff and setup capacity. But if you're doing it online, people love to get a discount, and you're much more likely to get more people to register early if you have that discount. It just kind of adds a fun part to it for some reason. I also, going along with fun, would really highly encourage you to market this as a date night. People want to come to this event because it's a celebration of a healthy relationship, and not because they want to fix something. So we try and have all of the names sound fun. It makes it sound fun and appealing. You don't want to have a workshop that says, come and learn how to budget your money. People get bored with that. But if you're like, money with your honey, all of a sudden, oh, what's that about? So it's important that you market it in a fun way. You never want to say, we're going to talk about how to overcome addiction. You want to say protecting your relationship. It's all how you couch it into something that sounds fun and positive and uplifting. When we did it in person, we also added an element of fun by throwing things out into the audience, like chocolate, or hiding things under the chairs that were like coupons or giveaways or whatever. We also did door prizes. People just love to have that element of fun, and it just makes it feel more like a fun date night and not just an educational event, which is really what we want to give them, but we've got to couch it in fun. And it helps to have a planning group of individuals that have a wide variety of backgrounds. So if you have people from different organizations and groups there, they can help then advertise to their various groups. One of the things that happened this last year is we happened to have someone who had a connection to the governor, and they were able to make a video for us to help us to advertise. And so that was a big benefit for us to be able to have that connection because of the individual who was part of our planning group. So that can be very helpful. Something else I want to talk about with maximizing marketing is how we did that. I mean, we tried to get the word out through anyone in any way that we possibly could, doctors' offices and community calendars, and we have a whole list of media and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to advertising, most of the things that were best and most effective were emails, people who'd come previously, word of mouth, and social media. So social media, there's a cost, but it's a lot less expensive than some of the other things that we've tried that really didn't give us much of a bang for our buck. We've paid big bucks to do things like radio ads and newspaper ads and billboards, and none of that really yielded much of a return. So I'd encourage you to look towards less expensive, but more reaching, through your community partners and things like that to be able to get the word out. So I want to just show you in comparison the virtual versus in person, because you might wonder, well, how did that affect your participants, right? So as I mentioned, we had about a combined capacity of around 1,000 when we were in person. And as you can see that we were reaching that some years, around close to 1,000, but it would fluctuate. And when we've gone online, very similar. Although the demographic has changed, we get about the same amount of people. We're getting more and more people who have never come before, which is just fine with me. I mean, we're going to reach different people, but as long as we're reaching a group that needs it, then to me, that makes it still, a win. You will notice in 2023, we had a virtual and an in-person because we tried a hybrid event. And I thought it was really interesting because there was a lot of people who said they wanted to have an in-person event, but yet more people chose to come virtually, which I thought was interesting. I think it's really helpful to have an evaluation so that you can see if what you're doing is effective. And I think you'll see from here that, overall, we were able to have a pretty effective event, and that's what we had found from our evaluations. But one of the things that was effective as we were giving out the evaluations in person was we attached a door prize ticket. And it wasn't required that they filled out the evaluation to do the door prize, but I think some people thought that it was, so it helped us to get more evaluations back. Now that we are doing it online, we're still doing door prizes, and it does, I think, help to promote how many people are giving us feedback, which is great. And you might ask, how do we get the door prizes? Usually local companies are very willing to donate items, not so much money, but items. And then in return, we put their information on our website to be able to share who our sponsors were. This year, we didn't get quite as many. And so we actually purchased some of the door prizes with the registration money, which worked too. So let's just talk briefly, because we're running out of time, about going virtual. So there's some benefits, there's pros and cons, right, to going virtual. But what we found found is that we were able to get some national experts, and it was not at any additional cost because there was no travel, which is great. We were able to reach larger audiences. Before, people were coming just from the local area, which is our target audience, but we were able to reach people across the whole state. So more people who needed this kind of information. And we weren't trying for it, but we actually have reached people from 33 other states, which is kind of cool. We were also able to address more sensitive, targeted topics, because when you're doing an in-person event, people don't want to be seen going into that addictions class or should I stay or should I go class. And so it was really nice to be able to reach people where they are with the things that they really needed in a sensitive and private way. We were also able to do it for a lot less money, as I mentioned before. And something that people really wanted was to have recordings of all the presenters. And when you're doing it in person, that can be very challenging to be able to do that when you're doing an in-person large event. That's just so many more wheels to move when you're already doing so many other things. And so having it online, we're able to record everything. So that's really helpful. And we're able to then add all of those combined together into what we call the vault of previous marriage celebrations. So people can go back and look for things that maybe they weren't addressed this year, but they were last year. And so they're still able to get what they need. So I mentioned before, we were in person for many, many years. Because of COVID, of course, we went online. We tried the hybrid. I think there's pros and cons to all of these. I think for me as a planner, it was much more challenging to do a hybrid event because I felt like I was planning 2 events back to back. And I don't know that I would do that again, but if you have the capability and you want to, I think people would probably love that too. So I'd like to invite you to check out this year's event in case you're interested in going virtual and you'd like to see kind of what that might look like. You can go to the website there as you can see on the screen. Just type in the MC2 for free as the code on the registration page. It'll give you free access and automatically gives you access to the vault. We use what's called Kajabi. It's a paid platform, but when we first started out, we actually used an online Google kind of page. And so that's something else that you could do that's free. But that way you can at least see an example of something that is kind of in action. Of granted, it's been a few years, so don't feel overwhelmed. But ultimately, I'm here. I've done this lots of times, and I would love to help. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out. I actually wrote an article and published it a few years about lessons learned from my in-person events, and that is a journal article that's available, and we'll make sure that you have access to that. But you also have my contact information here. Happy to help if you have any questions. Thanks so much for taking your time to be here. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
And I do want to let you know that I spoke with Naomi earlier this week, and she let me know that the discount code that she mentioned in the video has changed. And the new code is 24MC free. And I'll be sure to include that code in the follow-up email along with Naomi's email address in case you have any questions for her. And make sure that you use that discount code and log in and explore all the great resources that are there in the vault. Well, up next, we have the privilege of hearing from Mr. Ted Randall. And if you don't know Ted, he is a marriage and family therapist. He serves as the marriage pastor at North Star Church. He's co-founder of the Bay County Marriage and Family Initiative and an Adventures in Marriage facilitator. And Ted works really closely with Live the Life Northwest Florida. And today, Ted is going to be sharing on community-wide marriage blessings. And Ted organized this event in Florida during National Marriage Week this year. And he has some really great insights to share with us today. So Ted, whenever you are ready.
Perfect. Thank you. So Cindy did an awesome job introducing me, and she sent me an email and asked me to talk about planning, how we did planning and facilitating. And so I'm going to kind of keep my topic to just that, but just really briefly, what we did in Bay County was we had a countywide marriage blessing and vow renewal that we asked for churches to participate in, and we had some really good success with that. And so I want to talk a little bit about exactly how we did that. And so the next slide, I think, is the major key ingredient. And I emailed Carl yesterday just so I could remember exactly how to say this, is people own what they help to co-create. And so I think what I could say about how we did the project here in Bay County is that we have an awesome team. We have really, really incredible people that that facilitated this, that helped out so much, and just had incredible input. And so none of this would have been possible without just having an incredible team. And so I want to go to the next slide, and kind of I formulated my ideas into sort of these three things, and I thought these would kind of be the three steps that we took. There's probably things I forgot, and there's probably things that should get added, but this is how I thought of it. So what we did in the beginning is we co-created an idea. So in Bay County, we have a small steering team that we get together and talk about things that we're going to do as a marriage initiative. And so what we did for National Marriage Week, we talked about with our group. And something important is we wanted to do something that everybody could participate in. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. The second thing we did was we created several deliverables, and I'll show you guys what those are. But we created some simple tools that leaders in their churches could use. So we weren't asking them to, recreate the wheel or anything like that, and take as much pressure off of them as we possibly could. And then the last thing we did was just kind of simply ask for participation. So we contacted our community leaders, or specifically church leaders that we believed would want to participate. And so the next slide kind of talks about co-creating an idea. So the first part there is start with a simple idea or a concept. One of the things that we found a lot of success with is I had this little idea of doing a vow renewal and trying to break the world's record for vow renewals. And I got that off of a buddy and watching Dude Perfect with my kids. And I thought, hey, that would actually be really fun. And so I brought that to the group, this idea. Hey, let's do a countywide vow renewal and try to break the world record for vow renewals. And as we were kind of talking as a group, so that kind of leads into the second part, gathering input from your group to turn the idea into a shared project. Several of the people that we participate with are Catholic, and said, Father Michael kind of raised his hand. He said, hey, Ted, inside the Catholic Church, there's not really a mechanism for a vow renewal, but we would be open to doing a marriage blessing. And so this thing that started out, hey, let's do the world's largest vow renewal, turned into let's do a vow renewal and a marriage blessing, and kind of push this towards churches. And I say all that to say what we ended up offering to people was much better than this idea that I had. But the idea that I had gave us a jumping off place and gave us some place to start, which I think was helpful. And it's kind of something we're playing around with in the marriage initiative a bit. And then so the last part of this is to gather all the information into a central location to manage. For a lot of you, that would have been a very logical next step. I was thinking about Naomi and her presentation. She probably would have known this right away. But Dennis came to me one day and he said, hey, Ted, this project probably needs an owner. And I was like, oh, yeah, who should we get to own? He goes, well, I think it might be you. You might be the project owner. And at that point, we kind of went from this idea to managing a project. And so this next slide is kind of an example of how we did that. And so I wrote there on the left, this is a service or a web-based service called Trello. And specifically, it's either a Kanban or a Kanban, depending on how you like to say that word, a Kanban board. And simply what a Kanban board is, it's just a simple place to keep your to-do list, your doing list, and your done list. And then you kind of move things from left to right as they go from getting, all the way to getting done. And you keep things in priority order. And so the thing that's on the top of the to-do list is the highest priority or the most relevant thing to do. And when you start doing it, you move it into the doing column. And then when you finish it, you move it into the done column. Now, this was a bit of an education that I had to kind of go get for myself to try to figure out how would we manage a project like this? And what I like specifically about Trello or other web services like that is we could assign tasks to people. And so once we figured out what we want to do as a group, I was sort of the place that we came and made this list. This is the actual list. And so you see create and format a blessing and vow renewal for delivery to churches. And that has my name and Daniel's name. in parentheses. And so Dennis had another really great question: who's going to do what by when? Who's going to do what by when? And so we just tried to answer that question over and over and over again, and ultimately move things towards the done category. But that's specifically how we organize things. And so next I want to talk about creating some deliverables. That's just the name that I gave it. I said, hey, if we're going to engage these churches, we should create something for them to, something for them to use, some sort of tool that they could have. And the ultimate goal was to make it as simple on them, if they wanted to participate and engage with us, as we could humanly make it. So they wouldn't say, oh man, this is just too high of a barrier to enter, and we're not going to participate with the Bay County Marriage Initiative. And so the next slide will tell you about a few things that we created. One thing we created, and this was great, this was off of our team, we created a yard sign advertisement. And that was an idea that another team member had that was fantastic. And in our community, yard signs can be used and can be kind of prevalent. So that was cool. We created a simple marriage blessing and a vow renewal. And so we came together and created documents that we could send to pastors or link to pastors, so they didn't have to create their own marriage blessing or their own vow renewal. We made artwork at size for church displays, because we knew some churches would probably be talking about this on Sunday morning. And instead of having to have a graphic arts person put all this together and format things, we sent that to them. And then what we created was a next step handout. And the whole goal of this is, in our community, we're trying to raise capacity of marriage ministry. And so if we can engage with churches and help them understand, hey, here's some next steps. So that was a part of that little handout that we made, was to encourage them on how to take a next step with us. And so the next few slides are just going to be a few examples of what was done. Maria made this. Shout out to Maria, as my daughter would say. She's the one that came up with this graphic art, and just absolutely great. Thinking of myself doing something like this, it would not have looked like this. It would have just said vow renewal or something like that. And so it's back to something that someone co-creates. So that's excellent. And then the next slide is that was a yard sign. That's actually the yard sign that people use, which was fantastic. Okay. And so once we had the deliverables, we needed then to ask for participation from churches and figure out how this is going to go. And so what we did was, as a group, we got together and we brainstormed contacts in the steering team. And how we did that was a lot of people that we had already had contacts with, people that had attended our meetings, those types of things. And so we had a fair list. And so we kind of started with that list, and then we assigned people to the appropriate contact. So if you had a personal relationship with that person or previous contact, mainly if it's somebody that you could pick up the phone and text and call, we felt like, hey, this is a green light. Let's invite them to be a part. And then we reported back on the results in the group, and then we delivered the items via email. But I want to show you, this was not the next slide. Yeah. So this is this is like the brain central of follow up with people. And so we would sit together as a group, and you can see there on the left-hand side, it says Matthew Morgan, Palo Alto Church of Christ, contacted by Daniel Cherry, and is he in or out? That was the question. Is he in or out? And so these are all of the yeses. And we kind of went down the list. There was a list of maybes, and there was a list of nos. And we would just simply ask people on our steering team, and especially if they had a good relationship with that person, would you mind calling this person and reaching out and seeing if they would be willing to participate with us in the marriage initiative? And what we found was most people were willing to participate with us. That was a pretty high rate of that. And so the next slide just says, so how did it turn out? How did we end up doing? And so what's really cool is we had 17 churches in our community that participated, which is incredible. I remember being in school and then talking about interchurch relationships, and I felt like I needed a dictionary. I was like, interchurch relationships, you had to define that. But it was amazing. We had across denominational lines and all sorts of participation. in the initiative. And I think a lot of that had to do with the legwork that our team had done, and then those personal contacts, those personal reach outs. We didn't send out a mass email asking for participation. We personally called or personally texted the participants, and we had 17 churches in our community that participated. And this next screen I loved. This is Logan and Daniel on our local news station talking about the Bay County Marriage and Family Initiative. Another thing we did as a group is we reached out to local media sources, and Logan cracked the code on that and was able to have this really cool segment. And on our TV station, they were talking about the Bay County Marriage and Family Initiative. And so my final thought is, kind of how did we plan and facilitate this? And I go back to people own what they help to co-create or what they help to create. We facilitated it through a really, really, really cool group of people that work hard, that love God, that love marriage, and did awesome work. I tried to rewrite this, Carl. I wanted to say something like all stars crush what they help to create or something like that. But your language is much better. But that's pretty much so how we facilitated and planned National Marriage Week.
Well, all right. Thank you so much, Ted, for sharing with us. And your event really is the perfect example of people own what they help to create. And so thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
I get the honor to introduce to you Danny Panter, and Danny serves as the Associate Pastor for Next Gen Marriage at First Baptist Church of San Antonio. And Danny and his wife, Anna, some of you may know Anna, she's the Donor Development Officer for Marriage Initiative. And Danny and his wife, Anna, host Marriage in 3D. It's an event that's had great success over the years, and we're really excited to get to share it with you. Danny and Anna are currently on a mission trip, so Danny has pre-recorded his presentation for us today, and he's going to be walking us through the steps of hosting a Marriage in 3D event.
Hello, my name is Danny Panter. I am one of the associate pastors on staff at First Baptist Church San Antonio, and I have the privilege of overseeing our marriage ministry that we call Marriage Strong. We have a number of things that we provide couples here and hopefully other couples in the city that encourage and equip them to be all that God has called them to be in their marriage. But I want to talk about one of the things that we do called Marriage in 3D. Marriage in 3D is a date night event that we provide 3 times a year. As a team, you may decide to do it more often, but we've settled on 3 times a year as a great kind of interval in which our church family can expect an evening where they can be encouraged and equipped in their marriage and have a lot of fun doing it. Marriage in 3D stands for date, dessert, and devotion. Now, Marriage in 3D has actually been around a long time in the First Baptist family, but Marriage in 3D is more of a brand now. We don't just have a small devotion anymore. It's kind of exploded into a lot of different things that we do, some bigger things that we do. But nonetheless, this is a wonderful date night event that we provide for our church family and other couples in the city. Our main goal, and I think I've already mentioned this, is fun and meaningful conversations revolving around marriage. We want couples to come and be able to relax and have fun together. Maybe some of these couples are laughing and having fun for the first time in a long time. So we want to make sure that we invest in planning and energy to make it a fun evening. But we also want it to be meaningful. We want them to be able to leave thinking about next steps in their own marriage, things that would sharpen them, help them, equip them, that they can apply into their own marriage. So hopefully they're having a brand new conversation as they leave. Wow, that was a lot of fun. And man, did you really hear them talk about negotiating and are working through conflict together? That's really valuable. So hopefully those conversations, meaningful conversations, can happen at Marriage in 3D. What I'd like to do is kind of walk you through what an evening of Marriage in 3D looks like, and then spend some time talking about how we put it together and some things that you may want to consider as you host your own date night event. The first thing I want you to consider is keep it simple. And we're still learning how to do this. We are trying to improve every time we do a date night event. We don't have it all together, but try to keep it really simple. As I said, we do this 3 times a year, and you may decide to do it another time. But typically our date night event, Marriage in 3D, lands on a Friday evening, and it begins at 6 o'clock, where couples who have kiddos drop their kids off for childcare at the church. Right now we charge $5 per child. You might be able to do this at no cost, or you might have to actually pay a service to come in and help. It just all depends, but right now we charge $5 per child. And so after they drop their kiddos off, plan is they go have a date, spend some time together from about 6 to 7:30. We don't tell them where to go. They go wherever they want to go, as long as they go out on a date together. And while they're out on the date, we are finalizing setup in the space. The space that we meet in is called 4th Street Crossing. It's a wonderful venue, but we want to make sure the space is ready for the couples upon their return. Some of the things that we consider when we set up the room, we use tables, obviously, and on those tables we have tablecloths with centerpieces. Sometimes it's beautiful, simple, beautiful flowers that people end up taking home at the end of the evening. Sometimes it's a balloon arrangement. Those are a lot of fun, but we want every table to have a fun, beautiful, warm, romantic evening, even centerpiece. And also, you want to think about music that you have playing in the room. You want energetic, fun music, or it can be more romantic kind of music. I think we're leaning towards more the energetic kind of music. It just kind of sets the tone for the evening. Hey, we're going to have a lot of fun together, but you want to be selective on the music that you use. And we've used Christian music, and we've used some old school secular music as well. You really can decide. We've used Michael Bublé. We've done all kinds of things, but you want to give some thought to the music that's playing in the room as people are entering. You want to think about lighting. Do you want just the full-on lights in the room? We like to set the mood again. We really want this to be experienced, so you want to decide what kind of lighting that you want. We don't want the room just fully lit up. So we want to offer some mood lighting as folks enter the room and for the duration. We provide dessert. We put a lot of energy in deciding what do we want to provide. We actually have someone in our church family that provides dessert about once or twice a year in our Marriage in 3Ds, and then we usually go outside and actually purchase a dessert for one of those Marriage in 3Ds. If you have someone in your church family that does it, that's great. But we always put a high premium on presentation. We want couples to feel like we've really treated them. And so presentation is important. Luckily, we have someone in our church family that every time she puts a dessert together, whether that's creme brulee or little pies, I mean, she's done some awesome stuff, but she puts it together. It looks really nice. People feel like they are really experiencing a really nice evening. So we just don't throw cookies on the table, although we have used cookies, but again, we usually put a high premium on presentation. We provide coffee for the evening, tea oftentimes, as well as water for the evening. You want to think about presentation. We are in a venue that provides us really nice screens that we use ProPresenter to present slides. Those slides include not just what we're doing for the evening, but our branding, upcoming events, other announcements, sponsors if we have a sponsor for the evening. Sometimes we can do fun, informational, trivia kind of stuff on the front end, but you want to consider what you'll be and how you'll be using your presentation technology. But that also will set your evening apart as a fun, energetic evening. As people walk in, they have things on the screens. We typically also have a backdrop where people can take pictures so that they can record their evening together, a selfie, and then we invite people to post that immediately online. You can do a lot of fun things with that. We've had a backdrop where people can also wear funny glasses and hats and stuff like that, just to be funny and have a lot of fun. But those are some of the main elements that we consider when we're thinking about the room, the space that we're going to be in. You want it to be fun and energetic. You want it to be an experience. One of the things that we've done recently that was a huge hit is that we actually had a churros food truck, and people loved it. And we'd never done that before. It cost a little more money to do that, which is why we were charging people more than we had in the past. But it was a really great hit. You really can do a lot of different things. And so consider all those ideas. People actually start showing up after their date, usually around 7:30, between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. They get their coffee. And then at this point, we really utilize our team. And so we have a team, Marriage Strong team, which I'll talk more about in a moment. But we have them as greeters on the outside. We have them greeters on the inside. We have folks who are actually helping people with name tags. And we do door prizes. So they have to fill out little information for a door prize, one little card per couple. And then we select one of those couples at the end of the evening, or several couples at the end of the evening with the door prizes for the door prizes that we have. And so they sign in, get name tags, greet, finish off registration, and at 8 o'clock, we assign one of our lead couples to lead all the other couples in a fun, energetic activity. This could be an upfront game, or it could be a table activity. You could have people getting up and moving around the room. But the point is in the first 10 minutes, we really want people to interact, laugh, and have a lot of fun. Those first 10 minutes, 15 minutes are really crucial, especially if you have couples who are there for the first time. The husbands are really uncertain if they're really excited about being there. They don't know what's going to happen. Really set the tone from the beginning. Hey, this is going to be a fun evening. At around 8:15, they hand it off to Anna, my wife, and we intro the rest of the evening. We forecast, hey, this is what Marriage in 3 is, and this is what you can expect for the rest of the evening. And then we introduce the main feature of the evening. Now, there's a lot of different things that you can choose for your main feature, and we've done a lot of different things. We've had a comedian come in. We've had musicians. We've had just a game night where we just did a lot of different activities around the tables and had a lot of fun. We've had speakers come in to target a specific topic, which has been great. These speakers, sometimes they're national speakers, sometimes they're local speakers. High premium on the local speakers. They're usually awesome, especially in San Antonio. We have great resources and great local experts that can join you in your date night event. We really also have also taken opportunity to feature marriage stories. We'll invite couples to come in and talk about their marriage, especially if they have a story which we think might resonate with a lot of our couples and will be a source of encouragement for them. And so we do games, we've done a comedian, couple story, we've done musicians, but you get to choose how you fill that spot. But that main feature, that speaker, will have about 45 minutes. If it's a speaker in particular, we love to have Q&A. Folks love Q&A, and we've done this a lot of different ways. We've done Q&A where people fill out cards at the table, and then I have leaders go around and pick those up, and then I decide which of those questions to ask. Or you can do this electronically. On their device, they can submit a question via an online survey tool. We've used a lot of different ones. There's a lot of great ones out there. A lot of them, you actually have to pay for a subscription up to a certain amount or a certain amount of engagement. But if you do something like 100 and less engagements, it's free. So look into that and choose one that really best suits your needs. And so the main speaker, the main feature has about 45 minutes. We end with Q&A. After the main speaker is done, then they hand it back off to me and Anna, and then we close the evening. We obviously thank our guests. We thank the couples for trusting us for their date night event. And then we do door prizes, and we usually have someone come up and draw names out of a basket for us. And for door prizes, recently we've started asking local businesses to provide the door prize, whether that's a gift certificate, a $30 gift card, or an experience. That's been very successful for us. And we usually are able to build relationships with some of these area businesses where they do that more frequently. So that's great. You may want to check in to that. And then lastly, and this is so important, you always want to provide next steps for couples. You want to talk about when is the next date night event, or when is the next marriage equipping opportunity. You might have ongoing programming for marriages. You might have a young marrieds class, whatever. You want to take that opportunity to say, hey, here's what's coming next. And you may have already produced a little flyer that you've put on the table where people can have access to that and learn about the other things that you offer in your church family for marriages. Well, that's how the evening goes. And you might have more questions, but that's just kind of a snapshot of how our evening goes. But how do we prepare for that? Well, there are a lot of things to consider in preparing for a marriage in 3D, but really, again, we want to keep it simple. The first thing that I would encourage you to do is really lean on a team. If you don't already have, find other couples, like-minded couples who are passionate about equipping and encouraging couples in your church family and beyond. And that team will be a source of ideas, planning and implementation, and taking on those important roles from setup to cleanup. You really, really need a team. Things you also want to consider is registration. How would those couples register? Our couples register through our church's online database service, which provides online forms that couples can register through and make payment directly to. This gives us a snapshot of how many people are actually coming to the event. It doesn't mean couples can't just show up to the event that evening, but for childcare, you'll need to have an idea of a cutoff time for couples to register so you can be prepared for childcare. You're also going to want to consider costs. It's only been recently in the past year that we have actually included a cost for marriage in 3D. It's $20 a couple. That's helped subsidize some of the costs for the event, but you might have a budget that can take care of that, or the event is really so low cost that you don't have to charge couples at all. But you want to be able to be clear about that and make a decision as a team how that works. For childcare, it's $5 a child. In the past, we've done like a $20 cap per family, but again, you'll have to decide on how you'll do that based upon your needs. That's registration, but then you also want to consider marketing and planning for the event. Typically, we begin planning our event in terms of marketing and how we communicate this about 8 weeks out for the event. Might be different for you, but 8 weeks works well for us. It gives us an opportunity to talk with our media team or people responsible for developing graphics and posters. Hey, this is our vision for the event. This is what we're doing. And then they take that information and generate a poster and flyers and social media graphics that we can use to market online. But that's done about 8 weeks out. Social media is obviously very, very important. That's one of the main places that we have the opportunity to really communicate with people, not just with our church family, but obviously beyond. We really want to make this available to the city. So we really put a high premium on communicating on social media. And when we post on social media, we post a link or a QR code where people can register straight from that social media spot. Well, I know that was a lot, and hopefully some of it was coherent, but I would love to help you if I can. Again, my name is Danny, and would love to interact with you. So if you have any questions at all, please ask for my contact info from Sammy, and they certainly would give it to you. You can send me an email, give me a call, and I'd love to help you think through your own date night event. Again, hopefully this was helpful. God bless. Thanks a lot.
Well, all right. I will provide Danny's contact information in our follow-up email in case any of you have questions for him. But this is a really great event for you to be able to share with churches in your area. And what we love about it is that a church doesn't have to have a whole lot of capacity to be able to pull this event off. So it really is a great resource for you to offer to churches. And next up, Carl would like to share some thoughts with you. So Carl, whenever you are ready, sir.
Thank you, Stephanie. Well, I was so glad for you guys to get to see Danny Panter on this most recent video. And we're going to have that video as a standalone video on YouTube for you to be able to share with church leaders. This, because for CMIs, we're not recommending you organize events, but we definitely recommend that you work with churches and encourage churches to do events. And the reason why we wanted to share this one with you, first of all, they've done this at Valentine's Day every year for 14 years. That says a lot. Number two, they've done over 40 of these because they do this 3 times a year. And what really makes this work, what's so interesting to me, is that it's a simple and repeatable format. They usually have around 300 people, sometimes as many as 400 people that show up for this. And the reason why they have such good attendance consistently is because they've been doing it so long and people plan on it. People put it on their calendars 3 times a year. So I think that's really key. They always plan one of these events on the Friday closest to Valentine's Day. One of the things I think is really key is that you can host a table. Hopefully you could have a church host this event for you, but then they would allow you to host a table at this event. And if you as a CMI can promote this across your community to help that church be successful, then at a host table or at a display table, then you can meet other couples at other churches. And those are great beginnings to new relationships where you can then begin relationships with other churches. The key to what makes this work is, again, that it's simple, repeatable, and consistent. And that's what creates a lot of value. So we wanted to share this with you just as an idea for not only National Marriage Week, but how to begin to build more capacity for events around your city. So thank you, Stephanie.
Yes, thank you, Carl. Well, we're going to wrap up our training event today with a Q&A session for any of you that may have questions for Ted or Dionna or Carl. If you have any questions for Naomi or Danny, I will be sharing their email address with you in our follow-up email next week. And it doesn't have to be a question. Please feel free to share your comments as well. We'd love to hear from all of you. So if you would just raise your virtual hands and I will call on you. And I do want to say that we understand that time, it's a little after 1 now. So we do understand if you can't stay for this part. We are recording this event and we'll be uploading it to our YouTube channel. So you can go back and watch any part that you would like to. Do we have any questions or comments? Okay, yes, Donald.
Yes, I just want to thank, it's good information. I'm really interested in thinking about opportunities to do some stuff with our marriage couples here in Toledo. So I just want to thank you for keeping on inviting me, and I'm trying to keep it together, try to do what we need to do as well. But I just want to thank you for the info.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Donald. We appreciate that. And we're glad that you're here with us today. Tom, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah. And maybe Carl, maybe you'd be the one, since you followed up the last presentation. What sort of follow-up activities do they do? Like you say, this is kind of an on-ramp. What sort of other things would a church be doing or might be directing people to?
Yeah, so they twice a year they do a thing called Super Saturday, which is a all day long marriage preparation event using Symbis or Prepare Enrich. They use this as a launching pad for small groups. They have small groups that focus on marriage, and they use it to promote other events that they're doing around the city. So those are kind of the call to actions.
And then maybe one last. Should one be clear on the target audience? Is it he mentioned people in their church, but also outside, and I would think you need to be aware or cognizant of, is your primary focus to reach the community, or is it to reach Christians?
Yeah, so our rule of thumb is that we want the church to bring between half and 2/3 of the ultimate audience, and then we want to work hard to supplement that. And one of the things that we found is that other smaller churches that don't have the capacity to do a date night event, they make this their date night event for their couples. So it's created a lot of great partnerships. And so we do social media ads. We promote it in our newsletter. We put it on our event website. We use every communication channel available to us to make sure that they're successful. That's the key. We don't have to do events if we have churches that want to host events and can be successful doing so.
But if a church does it, should they focus on, okay, I'm reaching the non-Christian community or the church community? Should they think either way? A church.
I think it's up to the individual church, but this Danny's church, they're mostly reaching the faith community.
Thank you for your question, Tom. Dennis, I see you have your hand raised.
I just want to highlight a comment that Dionna made in passing, and it was just made in passing, but it was languaging that I'm not sure I had heard before, and I really liked it. And it's when she referred to, the statement was, you don't want to see one of your children or grandchildren go through the pain of a divorce or a toxic marriage. And I love the fact that she added that phrase, or a toxic marriage, because I think oftentimes I've said it, leaving that off to say, don't want to go through the pain of a divorce. And that makes it sound like we're this anti-divorce group. But by adding the phrase, avoid the pain of a divorce or a toxic marriage, it really emphasizes that really what we're about is building strong, loving marriages. So just a phrasing thing that I hadn't noticed before that I just want to highlight for folks. So that's it.
Thank you, Dennis, for sharing that. Yes, that was very good. And I see in the chat that Wanda has asked, and Carl, maybe you will be able to answer this. She's wanting to know what time of year are the 3 times of year for the event for Marriage 3D? Friday near Valentine's Day, and what are the other 2? Do you know?
I believe it's early summer and then, of course, fall, probably September.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And does anyone else have any comments or questions? Well, all right, then. It looks like we have all of our questions answered. So that's going to conclude our training event on strategies for success with National Marriage Week 2025. And I will be sending the link to the recording of this event along with the resource package. And that resource package is going to include all of the slide decks from today. And I'll be sending that out next week. So be on the lookout for that. And please don't hesitate to reach out to me at sammy.soltmans@gmail.com if you need anything at all. And we just want to say thank you guys for joining us today. We really do love you guys. We appreciate all of you. And we're just so glad that you are a part of our CMI family. So you guys have a great weekend. And we'll see you next time.